What is product-led SEO? It's not for the faint of heart. You need to throw out keywords and volume and aim for something greater. Learn from Eli Schwartz on this episode of Edge of the Web.
Go! Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics. This week's featured guest is Eli Schwartz, author of Product-Led SEO. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
This is Edge of the Web Radio. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Every week, we bring you amazing guests to chat about trending digital marketing news and topics. We unpack a key marketing topic for our digital marketing audience. So whether you're a part of an agency or part of a firm or a freelancer, this show is for you. So be sure to check out all of our recent shows over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Edge of the Web is brought to you by Site Strategics, the title sponsor of our show. We're pioneers in the agile digital marketing methodology. Our core specialties are technical SEO, content SEO, SEM, social media marketing and management, conversion rate optimization, and omni-channel media marketing. Agile marketing, results-based marketing that actually works. So if you're interested in what we can do for you, just give us a call at 877-SEO for Web or 877-736-4932. Want to make sure that you know who we talked to here recently. Go check out those interviews. Joe Martinez and Michelle Morgan were here in studio for a fun time, as well as Darren Shaw. So check out those recent interviews and pay attention to who's going to be coming up next. You can always check the website, be able to see who's on deck in the near future here. If you're interested in being part of the show, or if you have a particular individual that you would recommend being part, go ahead and give us a shout at info@edgeofthewebradio.com, and we'll be sure to respond to you, let you know if we're in sync, and maybe there's an opportunity to be able to talk with that guest. Set your reminders on YouTube as well to get notified when we post our videos. Make sure you check out our weekly news podcast as we roll that out each and every week, dropping it on Tuesday as much as possible with the indomitable Morty Oberstein. He's the head of communications over SEMrush, so you might want to pay attention to what he says, but not really how he says it. So check out what trouble we get into each and every week over there. So with all that, let's meet this week's industry guest. Eli Schwartz has a 15-year history of working in the digital marketing space. He actually experienced early on affiliate marketing, swinging a loose SEO hammer, just building websites and connecting clicks to leads. He knew that he could do a lot better than college kids in their basement and jumped into SEO, the SEO game early on. And this was back when SEO strategy was keyword density and buying links. And for those of you who are listening and were working in SEO at that time, you know exactly what that was. It was cramming the keywords, spinning the articles, and link pools. Well, Eli led an SEO team at SurveyMonkey. Over time, he built organic search from nearly zero to one of the largest growth drivers at the company. He helped launch SurveyMonkey's first APAC office and oversaw international SEO pre and post IPO. Just want to make sure that he wasn't using those old practices. He was actually creating brand new organic white hat tactics for SurveyMonkey. Now, there's a lot more to his history here, but rest assured when I tell you that he has helped companies such as Shutterstock, Gusto, WordPress, Blue Nile, Quora, GetAround, Mixpanel, and Zendesk. He's not only a force to be reckoned with, he's got a whale of a lot to share. He's actually rolled out a book this year, which should be part of everyone's reading list. That's Product-Led SEO. And this is not about an e-commerce product optimization strategy. Well, it is and it isn't. This is about the theory of SEO, frankly. But before I go too far, let's welcome Eli to the show. Thanks for joining us, Eli.
Hey, it's great to be here. It's such an honor to be a part of the show and to hear that lovely intro. I just kind of want to replay that all over and over again every time I need a little boost.
We'll send that to you as a ringtone. So
That'll be awkward in the movie theater.
But it's worth it, man. It's worth it. And I just want to make sure that I stopped along the way. We were talking about some old tactics in SEO long ago. That's not what you your sales weren't filled with those type of tactics, but you learned from what was going on 15 years ago, and as we all did, and we found our way out of that type of morass. Google Panda and Penguin certainly shaped us up to actually deliver correct content and authentic content, but you learned what not to do. And you actually kind of moved into a whole nother realm where you are one of the key thought leaders for SEO. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And thank you, Google, for helping me to learn how to do all this stuff. Without all those sleepless nights and penalties and near-death experiences from search, I don't know that I would have learned how to do this right and be able to share my experiences and how to do this right.
I think I can commiserate. I appreciate the near-death SEO factors here, because, we've all had those jaw-dropping moments of what in the world's happening. We thought every dial was turned the right way. All of a sudden, we've got to pivot as well whenever Google decides that, we're going to be paying attention to this a heck of a lot more. So, yeah, we all kind of have to thank Google of maturing our skills, yeah?
Well, not everyone gets the opportunity to get just smacked upside the head by Google. And I was fortunate that, that did happen to me. I talked about one of those experiences in the book where I was at this startup and we were doing great. We were doing everything that Google said you're supposed to do at the time. Mm-hmm. And we were ranking on these great terms. I had this massive budget to buy links, and then Panda came out and all the rules changed in a single day. And my boss was at a funeral. And he texted me and he's like, I think we're not ranking on some term. Mm-hmm. And I ignored him because he did that every day. And then I would just be like, hey, just hit enter again and we're good. So he texted me. I ignored his text because Reddit needed to be taken care of. There was some really interesting stuff happening on Reddit that day. He texted again. I ignored his text. And then he texted a third time and he's at a funeral. He's like, he had stepped out. So I was like, all right, maybe let me check. And I started checking. I was like, I think this time he's right. And by the time all was said and done, we lost 70% of our traffic in a single morning. And that was horrific.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. If your boss is stepping out of a funeral to actually let you know that things are dropping, then you best take the text. We have these horror stories here, but before anything else, why don't you give us your history and how you've come to be into SEO? I gave a little bit of a primer here with SurveyMonkey. I want to focus on SurveyMonkey that here in a bit here, but just kind of give us a journey of where you've been.
Yeah, so you mentioned that affiliate stuff. So early in my career, I joined this company. It was called Quinn Street. I've referred to it as the sewer of the internet. They don't like that, so let's not call it the sewer of the internet.
How about boiler room? How about boiler room? Would that be good?
Now I'll explain why I called it the sewer. You have on one side, you have people that want to do something. They want to get a mortgage. They want new windows. They want to get their credit repaired. And the other side, you have companies that are good at doing that. You need someone to plug that hole in the middle and to get everyone in the same room.
Sure.
That stuff is kind of dirty, and that's where Quinn Street did that. So I worked with affiliates. A lot of them were quite shady, and they did all sorts of shady things to drive all that traffic. And I had a slight hand in the mortgage crisis of 2008 because I was helping drive all those leads. And to me, when I joined that company, it was baffling that we paid a lot of money for terrible credit leads, and we paid almost no money for good credit leads. But that was the way the world worked at the time.
Wait, you're the one? You're the one that cost 2008?
Yeah, that was me. I apologize. I apologize to everyone.
All right. Well, at least we found it out.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a celebrity affiliate from the time. I worked directly with the current founder of Credit Karma. So he was my mortgage affiliate. He was driving mortgage leads, and he came up on a brilliant idea of how to drive mortgage leads a little bit better by turning into Credit Karma. But he did have a mortgage site, and he was selling leads to me.
Sure.
So I was working with these affiliates. They were making so much money, like $50,000, $100,000 a month in affiliate revenue. And I was like, I want to know what you're doing. So they taught me SEO. So I'm learning what they're doing. I'm learning how to do SEO. And SEO of 2005 and 6 was the SEO you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Buying links, keyword stuffing, URL domains the exact match domains, spam, like amazing stuff.
Hey, don't forget the article spinning. That was always a fun thing.
Yeah, I had a plugin called Caffeinated Content. Thanks for bringing that up. That you would load it up with content. We're going totally off the rails here, but I even had a website, a Sarah Palin website, because it was 2008. Yeah, 2008. I had a Sarah Palin website, and it was grabbing every article on the web that mentioned her name, and it was spinning it, and then I got a cease and desist from Sarah Palin.
Oh my gosh! You know you're doing well if that's the case, right?
When someone notices that you're taking every article about them and plug it into caffeinated content. But anyways, back to that. So that's how I learned SEO. I learned bad SEO, and I decided to try to get a job in SEO, but no one wanted to hire anybody that just learned SEO.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started I said I had all this expertise in SEO. I really understood everything. And I got my first job in SEO at the startup, the one where the boss was texting from the funeral. And I learned SEO on the job. So I knew a very, very little bit, knew some bad SEO. And then I'm working at a venture funded company. I was able to scale my skills into real SEO, into driving real revenue up until the day Panda happened, and we lost all that revenue. And then I got to build it back in the right way. And then I went on to SurveyMonkey, and that was, and I talk all about that in the book. That was a fascinating experience where I've pivoted all of my thinking around SEO from tactics to really strategy, from being really good at understanding Google to really being really good at understanding people at the company and understanding users and where Google wanted to be, because those tactics aren't going to work at a company like SurveyMonkey that had eventual aspirations of going public. It wasn't going to work at a company like SurveyMonkey where we had real users, and users were going to be disappointed if they clicked on something and it wasn't what they expected. And of course, we had hundreds of employees that weren't going to go along with the latest and greatest of SEO that came from the blogs. So that's what I wrote my book on, and how I was able to be successful there. When I joined the company, SEO wasn't a thing. We had 16 different sites, 16 different languages, or 16 different language sites that supported about, 150 countries around the world.
Wow.
And there was no website there. So you could actually do a survey in Spanish, and you could interact with the website in Spanish, but it was all on surveymonkey.com. We didn't have any visibility in Spanish at all. So that was the SEO I was able to do. It's like, okay, how do I understand Spanish? How do I get us visibility in Spanish? How do I, and I talked about these things in the book. Like my very first day, I had a great idea, and I was told by an engineer that he wasn't going to listen to me. Or I had a boss tell me, I came up with a really good idea of how we were going to get visibility internationally. And my boss's boss's boss, I think, she sat and she listened to me and heard me out. And then she responds with, "I think that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard." So I'm coming from a startup where I'm really important. My boss texted me from a funeral with SEO questions, and then I go to a CTO of a company with that. I still think it was a good idea. It had to do with like iframes, and that was her stupidest idea. Credit to her. Still very good friends with her. She emailed me the next day, and she said, "I thought about it. It's not as stupid as I originally thought."
Oh my gosh.
So, progress. But the SurveyMonkey we were visible on keywords like survey and online surveys and the word SurveyMonkey. But that was about it. And by the time I left, we were able to generate 2/3 of our global revenue from SEO. $200 million a year was coming from SEO. And as I put in the book, like when you generate $200 million a year for your company and they're public and everyone can see that revenue,
right?
You get to walk around with a swagger in your step. And like, that's what I want for SEO. I don't want SEOs walking around saying like, "Hey, I'm really proud of myself. I've got a top 3 ranking on this really important keyword that SEMrush says a lot of people search." I want SEOs to walk around saying, "I don't know what sort of keywords I rank on, and I don't even look at rankings, but you should know that I generate $100 million a year myself in revenue."
Snap. Right there.
Yes.
You need your own bathroom at that point in time. You need to have some sort of golden key to be able to actually swagger right in there and say, "Hey, you know what? If you earn $100 million a year for the company, you can have your own bathroom too." I'm just saying.
Exactly. The engineers are just pushing code, but if you came up with that idea that helped the engineer do their job right, you deserve your bathroom.
Oh my gosh! I don't threaten the engineers. They'll take your knees out, man.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a good backstory. You certainly do have some great stories you share about your history and your relationship to your different employers, and some of the C-level, some of the owners that actually put a bet on you and actually understood where you were going. And you've shared that with a number of different podcasts here. And if there's, I certainly want to laud you in that, because a lot of times thought leaders in this industry don't take a moment to actually recognize how they actually got through certain locks, certain gates, because you're standing on the shoulders of individuals that created something to be able to have the opportunity to take a swing at X or what have you. So it's not a regularity that you hear that type of referential look at the door openers in this industry, or in your industry, or in one's career. So kudos to that, man.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be where I was if not for all those people that really helped me get there. You know, I one other backstory. I don't know if you heard this backstory, but so I was at this company that the Quinn Street, the one I referred to as the sewer.
Yeah.
And the person that hired me, the recruiter that walked me through the process, that, answered my resume and got me the interviews and all that. So when I joined the company, we became friends and we had lunch together. Again, she's in recruiting and HR, and I'm in marketing, or I was business development at the time. So we were friends. And then I went on to, so I left that company. I went on to that startup where I worked a little over 4 years. And then I was ready to leave once we recovered from Panda, and I was looking for a new job. Now, everyone's free to find my LinkedIn profile. Actually, don't just find it. Connect with me. I'm happy to connect with anyone. And if you'll notice, I didn't go to any of these really great colleges that many of the people in Silicon Valley went to. So maybe I didn't deserve a job at SurveyMonkey, and I didn't have that academic pedigree that a lot of my coworkers had. But when I applied for the job at SurveyMonkey, the recruiter who answered my resume was the same recruiter that answered my resume 6 years before at Quinn Street. So that's how I got the job. Like, my phone interview was like, "How are you doing? How's your house? How's the weather? What are some interesting trips you went on?" And she's like, "All right, you're going to have an interview with the hiring manager tomorrow." Like, so there's like, yes, I'm so grateful to so many people, but there's a luck factor. There's like, I didn't really deserve to be here. Like, how did I get a job at SurveyMonkey, a hot company that had just raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and, work with people that had gone to Stanford when I didn't? There's luck, right? I'm so unfortunate. So I want to credit that. And that's why I try to be so helpful to other people in their careers, because you need to help people. Like, I was helped. I didn't get where I was by being the smartest and the most fortunate. I got where I was with being the right place, right time. So if I can ever help anybody else be in the right place, right time, I have to do that.
What is that saying? Fortune blesses the prepared, or something in that line. I mean, you got to be prepared for the luck. You just can't fall into something there. But so let's speed ahead here, and what we have in our industry is your fortune going through a number of different scenarios in which we now have a bit of a new philosophy in SEO, and yours is one that is kind of connected to a lot of other terms that we're discussing, semantic SEO being a foundational piece there. So I wanted to pivot around to the book and talk a little bit about some of the things that you've actually covered here. You dropped some key SEO concepts in your book. That is product-led SEO. You go through the history lesson, where things were ago, just what we're talking about in the search engine optimization space, and that's for the individual that maybe don't have that familiarity, the C-levels, the executives. You give them some groundwork of understanding what they are about to understand in this theory, and you're also presenting some good concepts of how to understand what the search engines are doing. But you're introducing a philosophical change when it comes down to SEO. You talk about the algorithms, you talk about discovery, crawling, indexing, and the like. Ranking is, in particular, you broke out the five key elements of ranking when it comes down to query intent, relevance, quality, usability, and context. And I'm going to shift and focus right on the query intent, because this is really the essence of what product-led SEO is all about. And you do mention natural language processing and the kind of the fifth factor or the fifth algorithm, so to speak. But you call it a competitive moat that you can actually affect from a strategy standpoint. You can draw around your product. Product-led SEO strategy is not just about products, it's the concept. It's kind of like the E-Myth concept. It's the concept of the iterative design, understanding what your consumers need not what they're searching for. And this is the divergence here. We have been grooming ourselves over in the SEO career for the longest time of understanding keyword rank has been an incredible factor. That goal, the brass ring. And if you have rank plus volume, that demonstrates the market. That's where you're trying to get to, and it's been that holy grail going after this with all gusto, right? Well, the world is turned, so to speak, in our SEO community. We're not valuing volume as much as understanding the intent of the customer and what that intent is ascribed to the keyword query that they're going after. That said, tell us about product-led SEO and what the principle is. I'll tee it up. You're talking about basically walking through, guiding everything as if it's a product itself, right?
It is. And I love the way you summarized it. And I think that a lot of people have a hard time really understanding the concept because it sounds familiar, but it's also unfamiliar. And the truth is like, I think it is familiar to most people, and it should be familiar to most people, which is it's user-centric SEO, really understanding what a user wants from search.
Yep.
And I think that a big challenge we have in our industry, and it's not just our industry, it's really every industry that exists in the entire world, is you go to work from 9 to 5, or I don't know, maybe people go to work from all 24 hours because they're working from home. But you go to work 9 to 5, and you wear one hat, you wear your company hat, you wear your job hat, and then you leave the office, and then you're a consumer.
Right.
And we forget that, and we're doing the same thing. And it's funny. I've even watched people they do that shift at the office where like they're thinking like a marketer. And then seconds later, they're planning a vacation and they're thinking like a consumer, and they don't notice that they made that shift. So here we are. We're like, okay, let's go after all these keywords. And the example I love using is a friend of mine who actually I worked with him years ago. He started a company in the insurance space, and he came to me for some SEO help. And he said, how can we start ranking on these keywords around insurance? And what I told him is he was never going to rank on those keywords around insurance. He was going to SEMrush, he was going to Ahrefs, he was looking at the keywords in the insurance space. It was spitting out keywords like car insurance and car insurance quotes and insurance rates and all those kinds of things. He's never going to rank just because he'd raised tens of millions of dollars for his startup from top tier venture capitalists. Doesn't mean Google's going to recognize that and attribute any value to it. And it also doesn't mean that Geico, Progressive, State Farm, Prudential, all those companies are just going to step aside for the sake of the new one and say, you
come on over here. The water's fine.
Yeah, we've been sitting here at the top of the search results for car insurance. You deserve a turn. We'll give you a shot here. See if you deserve it. And then you can sell us the leads. No problem. Right. So that's what I explained to him. I was like, these companies are not going to move aside. These queries are very old. Geico is older than Google. Right. All these companies they dominate their position, and rightly so. They are car insurance companies. And for whatever reason, Google might have decided Geico deserves to be number one and Progressive number two. It's whatever that is. Again, I don't know what the right ranking orders on certain queries. But then I talked to him a little bit about his business. And he told me what the business does is they help match people with better insurance when there are things that are problematic with their profile. So say they have low credit, say they have many accidents, say even they've had drunk driving incidents which show up in their driving record, or they've served time in prison for a felony, which is also slightly concerning for insurance companies. They do a great job of matching those kind of users with great insurance that they couldn't otherwise get on their own. They're a digital broker. So I said, why would you not build your SEO around that? That's what you do as a company. That's where you make a lot of money. Yep. And that's unique and distinct from what everyone else is doing. So it's user-centric SEO. And what I encourage that they do, and I changed some details so no one go and Google this because it doesn't exist. What I encourage that they do is go and build a product around that. So help people understand, what is it like to get insurance if you have a felony in the state of New York? What is it like to get insurance if you have a felony in the state of Texas? I'm not talking about creating doorway pages because it's actually different. The rules around felonies are different in New York than they are in Texas and in California and in Florida and all that. That's a product. So for all those users that are searching, we've created something they need and something they want. And these are not blog posts. These are informational pages based on whatever sort of information that user in particular would need to find around that query. That's a product. So that's what we're getting to with this idea of product-led SEO, It's user-centric SEO, of course, which is what we should always be doing. What would a user want and what does a user need when they go to a search engine? And by the way, 2/3 of the conversations I have with potential clients or startups that are looking for help and advice around SEO, I tell them not to do SEO because there is no user there. We can't conceptualize why a search user would look for their B2B hardware product as an example. So if there is a search user there, what does that search user want? And let's build for that search user. The holy grail of that is when it's product, when you can build something like, as I talk about in my book, a Zillow, a page for every website, or for every address in the entire America, a TripAdvisor, when you could build a page for every hotel in the entire world, a Amazon, when you could build a page for every product in the entire world. That's the holy grail. That's when you create hundreds and thousands and millions of pages. But even if you can't do that, can you think about it as a product? What does my felonious user in the state of New York, what does my drunk driving user in the state of New York need to see for their query? And how can I best steer them into the best insurance quote? That is a product. And that's where I like thinking about SEO. And you mentioned the idea of design, and I want to add in content. So too often in SEO, we think of content is the core of SEO. What my keywords are, that's the core of my SEO. I like to think of the user and then the product as the core of my SEO. So the content drives that. Do I need 1,500 words? Do I need 200 words? Do I need 10 words? Because what does this product need from a content standpoint to support it? Design. What does it need to look like? Design becomes an input to my SEO because it's a product. The same goes with engineering. And the same goes with everything you do around this. How are you going to monetize it? Do you monetize it with a sale? Do you monetize it with a lead? Do you monetize it by watching a video? Whatever it is, again, it's a product. Not every product needs to be sold.
There it is, right there. The key concept here is to actually deep dive and engineer into, for SEOs that are listening to this, this is the process in which you actually start learning your client's services, your client, and developing the product around that, finding the key differentiators in their marketplace, finding out how they do what they do, but also why they do what they do, because you're in the space of being able to match a consumer and their intent based on the product that they need. So you're not going after high traffic volume and trying to create an entire site structure to dream catch that traffic to pull it in. You're actually serving the user by understanding your client more, what they do, the services, the products, everything that they're offering. It's the offering engineering. And what you say in the book is basically being a product engineer as opposed to a marketer. That's what you have to be, because product engineers are intimate with their product. They're intimate with understanding the key factors of a service that company offers, and even the the post-implementation, the iteration of a product over time. The digital marketer has to understand their clients' not only motivation, but who it serves, how they're serving that customer with a product, and key pain points that people are experiencing. If you don't get that close to the service or the offering of your customer, then all you're doing is picking off volume and keyword ranks. And on top of that, you're led by trophy concepts as opposed to understanding what your consumer really, really needs. Do I get it?
Absolutely. And I would just add one other piece there,
sure,
which is too often when you're focused on your keyword volume, you miss out on key aspects of the user journey. So for example, with all of my clients, I've been fortunate to work with clients that have no SEO at all. So my baseline is amazing, where they have a lot of brand visibility,
sure,
100% brand visibility on search, but nothing for non-brand. One of the first things I'll recommend they do is start creating features pages, because if they're a big product and a big brand, and I've been able to work with a number of those, if there are a lot of people that are interested in that brand or product, but they don't talk about their features themselves, then TechCrunch talks about them. Wall Street Journal talks about them. Quora talks about them. Reddit talks about them. So this is an easy place to reclaim your own product and your own features by sharing it. Is there a ton of volume on the price of your product? No, there's not a ton of volume for sure, right? It's already a brand term. But if you don't have a page on the price of your product, someone else does. And even worse, there are all these sites out there. Again, it depends on the space. Let's say in the B2B software space, there's sites like G2 or Software Advice or a couple other ones where they rank on your terms,
right,
product plus price, and then they sell you back the lead. How terrible is that, right? So You want to build your own pages and own your own terms because it's a part of the user journey, not because there's a ton of search volume. If there's a page where someone is going through the user journey, and let's say it's mid-funnel, if you don't have it, someone else will have it, especially if you're a big product.
Now, own the dialogue of features and benefits and own the comparison in the ecosystem. Do what TechCrunch is doing, but also bring that coveted user in to be able to help guide them and be their advocate in their journey. As soon as they actually start trusting that you're not spinning content, that you're not just milking them for everything, that you're literally concerned and you value the experience that users have, right, with those products. And that's the other thing that you talk about in this book is learning, continually learning. This is not a defined product. You are now in the course of learning from consumers what is really important to them on any particular service or offering that your clients have, correct? So it's a constantly iterative process, yes?
Absolutely. And I don't want to discount the learning from Google too, because Google's doing the exact same thing. So instead of chasing the algorithm, like let's say, popular in e-commerce space, creating collection pages rather than product pages. So to say, I only want to create collection pages because Google only dominates and allows collection pages to appear on search, that's wrong. Instead, we say, Google has given me a hint that users like collection pages because it provides more search. So therefore, I want to create collection pages because it's better for the user. So yes, we include Google in this as a factor, but I'm not creating for the algorithm because the algorithms change. Users don't change. And just to dive into, really touch the third rail here.
Yeah.
When it comes to AI SEO and all the tools out there that people talk about where AI is going to do your SEO for you, and I mentioned this in the book, users buy, robots don't buy. So if you're using an AI tool to create your content, but at the end of this, there's a user, and the user's like, I don't know, it just doesn't speak to me because it didn't speak to you. It wasn't written by a person, right? So like, that's not the goal here. The goal isn't to trick Google so you rank on Google and then people click and then they don't want to buy because there's something slightly robotic about what you've done. That's not the goal.
I don't know. I mean, if we're going to have all these personal assistants, right, then they'll be doing the buying for us. So you're going to have robot to robot actually engaging and having a handshake. They're going to probably marginalize the human user out of the equation altogether. And you're just going to be having the smart speaker buy from Google regardless, right?
Fair enough. Well, once we get there, then we'll get there. But in the meantime, if you're looking like when your fridge can go and buy you more milk, right, then we're good. But if you want to go and find organic, again, this is the terrible example because we're not searching on Google for organic milk that's going to show up at your door. But if you want that organic milk of a specific price and you want to know whether it's going to make you fat or not, having a robot tell you the details about the fat content where you're like, I just want to know if it's healthy or not. That's not right.
Wait, we're in a whole other another place there. If the robot's starting to tell me that I'm fat and it actually starts ordering non-fat milk, oh man.
Kill that robot.
Yeah, get rid of it. That will be the day. Skynet is going to be there. And the AI is taking care of everything. We're a commodity now in the ad game. But if you start telling me that I'm fat, there will be a revolution.
Oh yeah,
it started here, folks. The rebellion started here. Okay, there's a lot.
Toss that Google Home out the window.
Calm down, John Connor.
So there's a lot more to talk about. I want to cover blue ocean and red ocean discussions here, but I want to bring that over to our second segment. I want to end up with this particular moment, this particular thought that you brought up in the book. SEO is a product in and of itself. Be mindful of that. For everybody who's listening to this, it's two different concepts. One, focus on SEO as an understanding that you have to match the pain points of the user to the feature offerings of the product. It's not going after the Holy Grail, but the SEO process is also a product, and you need to be looking at it as a first run, a V2, a V3 type of iterative product in itself as you deploy that inside of a company, right?
Absolutely. And I use examples in my book, and I think that's the best way of conceptualizing this. And like I shared earlier, when I was working at Quinn Street, I had a front row seat on some of the things happening in real estate, and Zillow was happening in real estate. Zillow was a Quinn Street affiliate.
Yep.
So Zillow tapped, and I forgot to jump on this when you say competitive moat, because this is a good time to talk about it. So Zillow came up with an idea, which is when people want to buy a house or sell a house or creep on their neighbors, see how much their neighbor's house costs, they want to know how much it costs. So prior to Zillow, the way of doing that was you went down to the courthouse and you pulled the land records and you could see the purchase history, or you looked at the tax history and you had something there. And if you wanted to get pictures, then you had to go to your neighbor's house or take pictures of your own house. And that was pictures. There was no database for it. Mm-hmm. Zillow realized from user research, I assume, that there was a product here, that people wanted this. So their alpha of this was, well, let's make a page for each address. And I'm sure it was pretty bad. And then they improved on it until we get to the point where it is today, where it's actually very rich. Mm-hmm. And going back to the idea of competitive moat, Zillow is number one or number two for every single address in America. They're only behind Google Maps. Redfin is trying to catch up, but Zillow has that competitive moat because they came up with this idea and realization first. By the time everyone else noticed, they dominated. They had invented a category. They were able to be visible on that category. And so much to the point that people, when they talk about their housing price or the price of their house, they use Zillow's word as estimate, right? So that's a competitive moat. So now we could say it's no brainer. Everyone could go to the government and pull out government data and build a Zillow. Now you're just playing catch up.
Absolutely. It's turned into a verb, and along with that, you can hear this not so silent screams of all the SEOs working for real estate agents, because every realtor around the country is now tamped down because of that effort. It's tough. It's tough working for realtors that want to be able to rank for a particular address. You just got to tell them no regularly. We're talking about product-led SEO, and to quickly summarize, we're talking about understanding the consumer's intent, the features of a product, learning so much about a client's services or offerings or projects or widgets, whatever they're selling, and be able to unpack not only the features and benefits, but also the needs of those niche consumers, right? It's not all about going after the brass ring of high volume keywords. In fact, we know now in this industry that there's a lot of unattainable spaces that really don't benefit clients because the conversion is so light in that space. It's top level type of fathead searches that really don't qualify into the needs of a consumer. So being in that, it's not just long tail strategy. It literally is understanding the consumer's needs, understanding what this product or offering or service really means to those consumers. And the marketer is now is obligated to learn deep and actually start wearing the reins of the product engineer mantle, so they can actually be as intimate as possible in understanding this particular niche or this particular ecosystem, and creating and productizing services around key concepts of need. Then you can actually set those out into the water there. So hopefully I summarized it to a good degree. In your book, Eli, you talk about a couple key concepts that have been in the business world for a long time. We're talking about blue ocean and red ocean. So first and foremost, tell us what a red ocean is when it comes down to industry and marketing.
Yeah, so the concept is not something I created at all. There's a book which I love called Blue Ocean Strategies, and it's fairly technical. It's written by business school professors, I believe, and I can't pronounce their names. Their names are very long. So Google Blue Ocean Strategies, and you'll find the book and read the book. Yep. It's an idea that you have a red ocean, and this is the way they categorize it. Red ocean is where all the competition is, and a best way of thinking about this is, say you are a taxi driver in the city of New York. That's a red ocean. So you are running your own business. You're driving your taxi, and the way you can make more money in a day is by hustling harder, driving faster, driving longer. But there's no real lever to change because you're stuck to the meter. If you get whatever passengers you have.
The model is defined. Yeah.
The model is completely defined. Now comes along Uber, and Uber says they're not going to make a better taxi. They're going to make a different service. So they created and they dove into a blue ocean. Actually, it might have been Lyft that actually came in first, but they dove into a blue ocean and they built a brand new category. And there the upside was huge. They could say, we're transporting people from A to B, but you're in a black car. So therefore, we can change the price. We're transporting people from A to B, but you know who's coming in, you know when they're coming in. We'll take a better route. We're not going to take you the express route, like I'm sure we've all taken in taxis in the past.
Sure.
Right. So suddenly they're able to own a space and make a lot more money. Putting that into SEO context, a red ocean is going on SEMrush and looking at the keywords in your space. And like I talked in last episode about car insurance, and you see those keywords in the car insurance, and then you go into Google and you Google car insurance, and there's a lot of websites that would like to be ranked on car insurance, and they are, and you have to get to like page 4 of search before you see some sites that maybe you're better than.
Mm-hmm.
A blue ocean is, you know, from your product research that this is something people want and they search. And in the last episode, I talked about Zillow. So people search for addresses and they don't just want to know how to navigate to them through Google Maps or MapQuest, rest in peace. They want to know how to, they want to know more about the address. They want to know what it looks like.
Right.
They want to know how much it costs. They want to know square footage. They want to know how much you pay in taxes. So that's a blue ocean. So suddenly, Zillow was able to build an entire category within that blue ocean, which could not be validated and still could not be validated with search volume, because if you go and put my personal address into a keyword research tool, you're going to get nothing. There's 0 monthly search volume. However, in aggregate, all the addresses on my street and all the addresses in my neighborhood, that's pretty big. Mm-hmm. So that's how you take that idea of red ocean, which is keywords that everyone's searching, which you know their search volume for, into blue ocean, which is no one else is creating content for it because no one else knows it should exist, but I know it should exist.
And that is a huge pivot point for organizations, because the red ocean's red for a reason. It's bloody out there, and there's competition, and there's price competition, there's value props. There's always a space in which, I mean, the aggressiveness of a well-matured industry is very tough, right? And it makes or breaks companies. And blue ocean should not be considered an easy route, because you're actually defining something wholly different, and it takes a different type of resolve. It takes a different type of introspection as well at the ownership of the company, all the way down to the marketing elements, all the way down to what understanding of consumer intent is out there, because that consumer intent may not be there yet, right? So unlocking that and being able to show and shepherd consumers, you should be paying attention to this type of service and this type of framework. You have an education environment there that you have to stoke. So no longer are you just competing about something that's known. You actually are now taking people up the mountain to actually demonstrate. I shouldn't probably use a mountain for an analogy if I'm talking about. Let's say, what kind of analogy should we do in the blue ocean? I'll stick with the fact that you need to be able to guide people in understanding that there's a different solution that's out there. That doesn't mean you have to have high volume content. It just has to be intuitive and understanding what the consumer's needs are whenever they're looking for a product. Product is what's the adage? You know, people aren't looking for a drill; they're looking to make a hole, right? So yep. You got to find what those needs are and be able to match that with your content and SEO strategy. I went long there, but what else can we help guide? Is blue ocean strategies for everyone? Let me ask you that.
That's a fair question. So in the last episode, I said that I think that there are many companies, and probably 2/3 of the companies I talk to, that there isn't really a fit for SEO. Mm-hmm. So if you sell, and I'll give an example from last week. I talked to a company. They sell a smart light product, a smart light bulb, and they sell it in Home Depot and they sell it in Walmart, and they were very interested in SEO.
Yep.
I can't conceive of a blue ocean for that and why they should invest in SEO. They could go and build an entire category around smart lighting and how to choose and build products and widgets. But like, they could also just take that money they were thinking of building around this entire content product, a magazine, if you want to call it, and just invest it into paid search or invest it into discounts at Home Depot, and they'll sell more. Sure. So I think there may be a blue ocean, a place that people are potentially searching, but it's not a worthwhile blue ocean. But going back to the topic of identifying the blue ocean and understanding what that blue ocean is, So in my book, I reference my 3 favorite places of getting this data, which is number 1, surveys. So a survey doesn't have, and obviously I'm biased towards surveys because I spent all the time at SurveyMonkey, but a survey doesn't actually have to be a statistically significant, well-run, quantitative, qualitative survey. It could really be a stand on the street, ask 10 people what they would think, or post a poll on Twitter or put a poll on Facebook and just get some ideas, because we're always stuck in our own heads as marketers and as product people. And we think we know what to solve. And this is why so many startups fail, is like they solve a problem that they had. They're not solving a problem everyone else has. So learn from other people. Just ask them, what would they search for? Is this something you'd be interested in finding? Would you even use a search engine, or would you just like text a friend or go on Snapchat or something to find an answer to the question you have? Once you validate that, then you can think about what the blue ocean is. And then a couple other ideas that I have in my book, which is you can use customer data. So if you already have existing customers, you know where they're dropping off, you know how they're experiencing the product, you know what makes them purchase and what kind of product they purchase at a higher amount. And then the third is just an extension of that, which is if you're at a larger company, at SurveyMonkey, we have this advantage, and you have customer support. So good companies usually capture all the customer support interactions in some sort of database, like a Salesforce. Look at that Salesforce, and you can use a word cloud in Salesforce and say, here are all the times people said, oh, I wish I could do this with my phone. Sure. And then you say, well, let me write content around it. Everyone's emailing in for support about this. This is obviously an entire category I could build content around. So those are the places that you could identify blue oceans. Now, the interesting thing is, especially on the customer support data, if the content existed already, more than likely they would have Googled it and found it. Like, who of us out here loves to talk to customer support and wait for a long-winded email? And how often do you send an email to customer support and they just send you back some canned response because that's the way they get through their job faster? So we don't want that. We'd much rather go and Google it and find an answer. The fact that they are writing to customer support tells you it doesn't yet exist, and you could create content around it.
You absolutely can. And digging into customer support, digging in and interviewing your sales team, and on top of that, digging in and interviewing product engineers of a company gives you so much additional insight that is completely undiscovered, like you're talking about. And that can actually be pivotal for companies' direction, right? It's not just to learn the better ways to communicate to your consumers or users of the product, but there are case studies of when that type of listening intent started to go into all the different areas of all the different departments of a company. Companies sometimes change their products radically and stop offering products and find other deliveries of products that actually match those consumer intents, right?
Absolutely. And this is such an important concept when it comes to SEO, and a big pet peeve I have when it comes to SEO, which is I don't like how SEO is siloed away from the rest of marketing and the rest of a company's strategies. And I think this is a mistake. So like within SEO, we're picking too often, and I don't do this, but too often people out there do this. They pick keywords and they build their entire strategy around a keyword. So maybe they'll buy links or maybe they'll write content, when the rest of the company is doing something completely different. They're talking about a product feature, and I think it has to align. So like the example I gave in the last episode about the friend I had with the car insurance, they're doing all this buying on people with felonies that are looking for car insurance. They're doing all this performance marketing, but when it came to SEO, they were going to do something different. They create car insurance quote content. That's where you align it all and say, this is what works in paid marketing. This is what will work in SEO. And actually, when I talk to companies that have not yet done paid marketing, I encourage them to do paid marketing on Google and Facebook first, because it gives them that flywheel of knowing like what works, what resonates. The user that clicks in on a paid ad is the exact same human being that clicks on organic. They just chose to click number 1 instead of clicking number probably by now 10, right? Just all the way further down on the page below the fold on your phone and all that. So that's the same person. Get that data, instant gratification, know what works, know how the landing pages work, and then build an SEO strategy around it. If you do it the opposite, you could go all in on SEO, take 12 months, and discover you're wrong. Yeah. So, kill the learning curve.
You better believe in pay, but you have to be mindful that it's a learning curve. But you also paid marketing is absolutely research and development. And that should be conceived that way. It's just not marketing. You're learning so much, and you need to capitalize on it, because what you're doing is casting your rod into a fast-moving stream, right? So you don't have your SEO structure and the entire architectural plan. You're actually doing research and being able to find. But if you're just fishing for the fastest moving fish in that space, right? You're not really doing yourself any justice. You've got to learn from those and bring those paid consumers in, and bring them into landing pages that are not squeeze pages. They're actually learning processes to be able to discover what they're really looking for. I bet regularly there are tactics that you deploy that give that type of that intake process as part of your marketing services, right?
Exactly. Yeah. This is an entire process of really understanding users and understanding what you're supposed to be doing for these users rather than some esoteric SEO goals.
Yep, absolutely. So again, it's about product. It's about just don't go after these esoteric and arbitrary goals. If you see high volume, it doesn't mean that's the North Star. The North Star should really be meeting those consumers to the best degree that you can understand their needs, and changing your strategies to be able to unfurl that plus even more on your site. You're absolutely right. You need to be able to own those features and benefits, but also be able to show on your site that you're listening to consumers. What a brand alignment as well, whenever consumers are seeing that you're actively listening to their pain, right?
Yeah, and it's not just about the North Star being the users. The North Star should be the company's metrics. So if, say, paid marketing, the goal is to sell a product, that's SEO's goal. If through paid marketing, the goal is to get people to download an app, that's SEO's goal. When you have a vanity metric of like SEO's goal is to have content on this keyword and be in the top 5 of Google, unless you get paid for impressions of Google, that's pointless effort, right? You want that to be the same goal. It should be, and we talked about users and engagement, right? So like if you're at a media company, your goal could actually be users and engagement. We want them to click in and then click around the site and read a lot of content and sell a lot of ads. That's fine, right? But like if you're not a media company, what's the point of having people read 10 blog posts from SEO if they're never going to buy a product? You've spent, yes, SEO traffic is quote unquote free, but you've spent money on it. You've put engineering time. You maybe have an SEO manager, you have an SEO consultant. So that effort is wasted if all you've done is ranked a blog post on search and people read it. Maybe they share it with their friends, but no one ever buys from it.
You mentioned something in the first episode of the pivot that marketers do whenever they actually go to buy something and they don't realize they're in the consumer mindset. Being able to have that consumer mindset while you're actually doing marketing, but also have the product engineer mindset to be intimately understanding the product, the offering, but also learning about things more and more. That's a discipline. That's a real tough discipline to have regular in your strategy and your discovery. We can be attracted by that bug light of, again, keyword volume and ranking competitiveness. I mean, the entire red ocean there of search. I mean, how would you recommend marketing firms pivot away from that attraction and build that discipline? And are there any guide points that we can discover along the way there of keeping us in that moment of discovery?
Yeah. So the answer to that really is you have to do evangelism. So if you're at a company, if you can't convince your boss to stop being focused on these dumb metrics, then maybe the company isn't going to be as successful as you hoped it would be because your boss is in a position of leadership and they're hung up on dumb metrics. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my book is like how I was able to get leadership to pivot away. And I learned so many things from them. Like I learned from my CTO, the same one that in that last episode I said that the idea I gave was the dumbest idea she ever heard. I learned from her that SEO efforts should be amortized over 5 years. So instead of I make an investment and I expect to pay off right away, think about the investment we make within 5 years, how much we're going to make. And that's astounding. Like I shared earlier, like SurveyMonkey made $200 million a year off of SEO over 5 years. That's $1 billion without any growth, without any compounding. That's $1 billion, right? So like that's the idea of like thinking about SEO from a big picture. That's what you want to evangelize instead of like, let's write a blog post because lots of people are thinking about it. Be a big picture thinker. Now, if you're a consultant, then your job is to influence your clients, and your job is to influence your points of contact about like, let's think bigger about this and not be focused on things that we don't believe in, and share with a passion and say, again, consumer hat versus marketer hat. Who of us is going to read a blog, like something that actually / blog and talks about the company? And, let's say the company, we're really excited. We are back in the office and we're allowing dogs. Who cares, right? We're not buying from that article, but somehow like your boss says to you like, oh, we're a pet friendly office. Make sure we get it. And what keyword should we put in this pet friendly blog post, right? So like there's that big disconnect, but be passionate about it and be authoritative and say, I'm sorry, boss, this is not SEO, or I'm sorry, client, this is not SEO. What is SEO is let's talk about our users and what our users' pain points are. And it doesn't matter what the search volume is. So that's what I would say is there is a disconnect. And the reason that marketers don't think like consumers is because the people that guide us don't let us think like consumers, because the metrics they want us to be measured by are not the right metrics. So use that position where you are in SEO to go and influence those others around you and those others on top of you to say, this is what we should be doing. This is where the success will come from. It's not going to come from a blog post that probably no one's going to read, even if I SEO optimize it pretty well.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So wash, rinse, and repeat what Eli just said there. We got to be able to educate the ones above us of what's really important from an ROI standpoint and tactical successes. We're always beholden to things that really don't matter. It's keyword ranking, it's search. It's not about volume. It's about the right users finding the right content at the right time. And we have to keep that as the mantra. Eli,
I want to touch one third rail again. I did it in the last episode.
Hit it.
All right. I got to touch this.
All right.
When I talk to clients and they tell me that they're very excited about their position zeros or they'll complain about we've lost our position zeros, my response is always, who cares? You don't want position zeros. They're useless. I know I'm touching the third rail.
No, come on.
but that is Google taking your content and giving answers to your potential users. I'd rather be position 3 than position 0 because I can get a click through and then I have an opportunity to sell them. Or if it's a category page, I have the opportunity for them to branch in different directions. Or if I'm a media site, I have the opportunity for them to read more content. If I position 0, Google takes my content, gives it away from me. That's a vanity metric. So that is really about the people on top of you, right? So I was talking to a CEO and she was worried about her position zeros and I convinced her not to care because that's the vanity metric. So she thought she was doing better in SEO because she had a lot of position zeros. She's doing worse at SEO because Google's stealing more content and more potential conversions. So yes, it's a vanity metric. Don't think about it. It's all about selling and getting clicks and satisfying users, not about being.
So one could say, how's our Google poach factor this month? How much real estate is Google poaching from us for its own use, right?
Absolutely. Good for Google, bad for you.
Absolutely. All right. Hey, I know you're on hard stop here, but I do want to ask a couple questions here real quick. We do appreciate you unpacking this with us, and we certainly recommend everybody pick up product Led SEO. It's a philosophy change, and it really is. It's that watershed moment of jettisoning these old non-performing metrics because we're not looking at the right things. We should really be diving into those consumers and what those needs are. Let me ask you this. What really bugs you about your industry right now?
I'd say that the things I just mentioned, the fact that we focused on these vanity metrics and the fact that we don't think about the consumer and we put on this marketer hat. I think that if we actually just divorced ourselves from that marketer hat and thought about what the consumer wants, everyone could be doing great SEO. And they think about it from a strategic standpoint of, well, I'm a consumer. What do I expect to see here? And then how do I get to this point? How do I get to this end goal? And then you influence your boss and then you influence the people around you. But I think if that's the problem is that we allowed ourselves to be siloed into just vanity metrics around SEO. If I just need to be ranking on this without really thinking about the user, everything else follows that.
Very good. Very good. Well, conversely, is there something that really is exciting you in the industry right now?
It's actually exciting me about another industry, which is the paid marketing industry. The fact that
hey, we don't talk about that. Come on.
Yeah, Apple and Facebook are going to war with each other.
Oh yeah,
and
it's fun.
Congress, when they're done with all the things Congress is not doing right now, they're going to get around to privacy, and they're going to destroy paid marketing. That means that SEO is going to explode. So I'm so excited by this. You know, from my clients, I'm seeing tax are going up. Things are getting more expensive and more complicated, and the interest in SEO is exploding already. Just wait till it gets more complicated. And then I would say this to the listener, wherever you are in your career, there's not enough of us out there. There's not enough SEOs. That's why I try to help people get new jobs and get paid more. You know, pet peeve of mine when a company spends $100,000, $150,000 per day on SEO, but on
PPC,
paid search,
right?
But wants to spend $80,000 on an SEO leader. That's ridiculous, right? So like, there's so much potential here. That's what excites me the most. The potential here is amazing.
Oh my gosh, we got a lot of friends in PPC that do not want to hear what you just said.
Oh, they'll be fine. It's Facebook that's not going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's Google that's not going to be fine. Everyone will still spend tons of money, but they're just going to get less for that money.
Well, we want to make sure that you get out of here on time. So everybody go grab a hold of the book on Amazon, and we'll have in the show notes where you can go get it. We certainly would love to have you back on the show, Eli. It's been a long time coming because we know you were in the ecosystem for the longest time. So forgive me for not getting you on the show earlier, but you're welcome back at any time to unpack some of these additional concepts.
I'd love to be in that fancy studio you have.
Oh, well, you got to join us sometime. Come over to Indy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So thanks so much for everything you're doing and everything you're sharing in the SEO industry as well. We need this type of input. We really do. And kind of a reorientation to the C-level of what to truly pay attention to. So congrats on your book, and we wish you all the best success.
Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Make sure you follow Eli on his Twitter handle, 5LE. Damn, that's pretty cool. And search around, you'll find all of the information and different interviews that he's had. But make sure that you pick up that book. It's a really good read, and it also gives some great basics and understanding of the SEO industry as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Edge of the Web. And if you're really feeling up to us today, we'd love a quick review on iTunes about this episode. Let us know how we did and how we unpacked product-led SEO for you. Thanks to our sponsor, Site Strategics, and make sure you check out all the must-see videos and everything over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. From all of us over at Edge, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.